Namaste everyone. So after completing the tutorial, you will be able to see these 7 API, and in which you will be able to do is sign in. You will receive a access token. You will receive the token expiry, token type, username, and you will also receive a refresh token in the form of HTTP only cookie. You will be able to do you will be able to call the refresh token using this. Let me just show you. I will copy the refresh token from here, and I will put it there. You will be able to receive a new access token. As you know, the access token is can expire in like 5 to 15 minutes, but refresh token is there for getting a new access token, and refresh token expiry is generally like around 15 days, or uh, based on the requirement of wherever you are working, but it is generally for a longer duration. Okay, so using this sign in, you will receive the access token. You will be able to, based on whatever the roles and permission that you are having, you will be able to access different APIs. So as I am logged in as an admin, I will be able to access all the APIs from welcome to manager to the admin API. If suppose I sign up someone as a role with manager, let's sign in up. Let's use his API. Let's see. Okay, so let's see if I'm able to access the admin or not using the access token. So I'm not able to. It is 403 forbidden. But if you have seen, if I can use this access token for this admin message, I will be able to access the API. There is also called a logout, which is basically revoking all the access for that particular refresh token. So if you will see, I have in this sign-in API, I have the refresh token here, right? Using which I can generate a new access token. So if I log out this refresh token, now if I want to try the same, right? To get the access token, I will not be able to get it. So this is a good tutorial. I don't see any other tutorial where you will be able to learn all four of them: sign in, sign out, everything, and with the refresh token getting as HTTP only. So please follow along. I will be putting a GitHub URL. Open that in the README page. You have everything there. So yeah, let's start. Okay, let's also check the S2 console. Let me bring that here. Let me bring my S2 console here so that you can check the database. So you will be seeing user info and refresh token. So if I will run the user info, you have all the four data, right? And if I will use the refresh token, you will see for which user you have created. So yeah, so let's start. So I have given this GitHub URL, so you guys can go there, and you will come to this page. My main purpose is not to write code line by line. My main purpose is to get you guys understand how refresh token, access token works, how you can use it in your application. So we will follow. I have write it down in like bit-sized steps. So I will also follow this. I will suggest you guys also to create opinion IntelliJ and follow these steps that I'm doing it here. Okay. So first step is basically to start the Spring initializer, right? So let me create one more page and copy this, put this thing here. Okay. Let's start with the Spring initializer. We are going to create the project. So 3.2.2 is the latest one. Here, SQL converted to uh, OAuth, right? and we are going to create JWT token with OAuth2. Similar demo for JWT with OAuth2. So it's fine. Let's use the latest Java, and now let's add the dependencies. The first dependency that it says is web. Let's add web, then Lombok, then validation. So web is for API, Lombok is for removing the boilerplate coding, right? And validation is for validating your DTO. Uh, we will be using S2. You can use Postgres or whatever you want to. For the easier purpose, I'm using S2. Let's use JPA for Hibernate mapping. Let's use OAuth2 resource server for the purpose of authentication and managing our JWT. Let's add the last, which is configuration processor, Spring configuration processor. So we have everything that we require. Yeah, let's now generate it. So once we generate it, we will have the zip somewhere. Let's pull the zip. Uh, okay. So now we have this folder here, right? Let's open this thing in our IntelliJ. Let's open the IntelliJ file. I'm using IntelliJ. You can you if you want, you can use any of the editor you want, right? But for backend, I will suggest go for the IntelliJ itself. So desktop JWT-2. Let's open this project. Okay. And again, I will be putting this in the half of the screen and put this thing so that we can see the steps that I'm doing, right? So again, I'm telling like this is the best way that I found that in shortest amount of time I will be able to make you guys understand this. Otherwise, it will be a very long tutorial. Okay. So I think everything is working fine. Let's start the application and see. Okay, we found this error. It is basically when SDKs are not aligned with the with what we want. Okay, so if you have Java 21, it's fine. Otherwise, if you have selected Java 17 or something, you need to change. So let's start the application to see that everything is working fine. Yeah. Okay, everything is working fine. So we have these dependencies now, right? If you want, you can check find the build.gradle file. You have all these dependencies here. Okay. So now the second step is basically to do the database setup. Let me copy this and I will explain step by step like why and what I'm doing. And let me convert this file to YAML file, and YAML file is basically easy to structure, easy to write, right? So that's why I'm using YAML file. So open this YAML file, paste it. So if you will see what I'm doing here, is basically, hey, I'm telling that I want to enable my S2 console. You have seen, right? Like in the demo where we are seeing the database. So this is what making it enabled. So database source URL basically, hey, JDBC S2 in-memory database. What database we want? At QuillDB. Username system administrator, password nothing, driver class name, basically JPA for Spring JPA for Hibernate mapping, right? And we are checking S2 dialect, show SQL true, and here we are doing create drop. What it does is whenever we restart the application, it will delete all the tables and recreate it. So it is very useful when you are doing any POC or small demo. Okay, but generally you should use update in the prod environment. So, but I will rather tell you guys to use any kind of database management system like Liquid Base or Flybase for managing any kind of update. I will definitely make a video on it if you guys require it. Do it, write it in comments. So I'm also using logging level to trace to see that like for the Spring Security, only for the Spring Security, so that if anything goes wrong, I can just see the logs and tell you. Okay. Now, for the logging, we also need need to have some user, right? I could have used in-memory data, in-memory user or something very simple, but I don't want to use that because it will be a cheat, right? So I'm going to use JPA itself, which is widely used for any kind of, user management. If you have any, if you are creating any application, okay. So let's see the first step, user info entity, go to Java, this create a package called entity, create a file called user info entity. Just follow these steps and you will understand the flow. Okay. And now let me copy this whole thing, put it here. Okay. What this thing, import class persistence. Here also the same, import persistence. So what we are saying is, hey, data, everything, we are going to tell that, hey, this is the entity, right? And the table name we are giving user info ID, and this generated value is basically saying that whatever the best way it is there for this particular database, create the IDs. So username, we are using ID, username and email ID, and this email ID we are going to use it for checking that everything is fine or not. I mean, the user exists or not, or for a matching purpose, username and password purpose. So here we are saying a label false, name is equal to email ID, and unique is equal to true. So here also nullable false and name is equal to password, mobile number, and roles. So this is very important, role. So role can be basically a role underscore admin and role underscore manager. So these are the different roles that a user can have, right? And there's a difference between roles and permissions. Again, role and permission. So okay, so there is a difference between role and permission. Role is basically saying that, like suppose in your house, your father is having some role, your mother is having some role, right? And this, all these roles involve comes with some sort of work that they do. So these are called permissions. So suppose admin will have some role of writing, uh, but a user can just will have a permission only to read. So but admin can also have the permission for write as well as read. So this is the difference between role and permissions. I believe you might have understood. So um, okay, so it is done. Now let's create a user info repo, which is here to some like to add these users into the repo, right? So let's create a package called repo. In this, add a user info repo file. Okay, user info repo file. Let's copy this. Let's put it here. So now it is saying that, hey, user info repo, JPA repository. I'm using JPA for mapping, right? User info entity and the ID is long. So now the third step is basically, okay, so creating the authentication object. So generally whenever you are doing the login and all, you have a authentication object that is coming from the HTTP, like from the UI, which we match to say that, hey, user is good or not. We are not directly sending the user and password, right? So let's first create a config package called config, and in this let's add this user info config. So what it does is it basically implements a user details, and the only task of user details is creating the authentication object, right? It has multiple methods that it implements, like suppose creating the authority. So this authority is nothing but whatever the roles that you have created here, in the form of a string, right? It is converting it in the form of list. So let's copy this code from here to here. Okay, so let me remove this user info entity. Let's add user info entity here. So we are taking the user info entity. Let's add required argument constructor so that this final field we can inject using the constructor injection. So let's add this in. Okay. Now everything is looking fine. So what we are saying that, hey, whatever the rules that we have in the form of a string, which is there in the form of comma, whatever the rules that is there, right, in the form of comma, let's convert it in the form of array. Role admin, role underscore admin, comma, role underscore manager. If suppose somebody is having two roles, okay, and it is possible, okay, to one person to have multiple roles. Okay, now let's see user info entity get password. So let's put the password for that entity here. Let's use username 10, and for everything else we just need to convert it to true, right? We are saying that, hey, is the account non-expired? True, it is not expired account, it is not a blocked account, it is not account credentials has not expired yet. So we are putting everything true. And is this thing enabled? It is also true. So if you want to, do the configuration for yourself for these, you are welcomed with it, but this is a small tutorial. So yeah, where is the error? Okay, so now everything is looking fine, right? Let me give in a space there, a space there. So now let's add a user detail service, which basically loads the user from the database so that we can use it for mapping to our API to check that, hey, everything is correct or not. What then this thing is doing? This is just mapping those user with the authority object, which is very much required. Okay. So if you will go here, uh, it, you can read all these things, and it says that into the authentication object, right? This is what that I'm telling. So let's close everything, close all tabs. Create one more user info config. Inside this Java user info config, it is basically, let me copy this. Okay, let me first show you that implements it. It also has one more method that we want to implement, that is load user by username. So basically it says that and why we are using this instead of directly injecting it into our security config. I will tell you what that means if you don't know about security config, but yeah, why we are using this, so that we have a segregation that from which database, which kind of database we are getting our user. So right now, if you want, you can use MongoDB, you can use Postgres, you can use SQL Server, you can use Google, you can use whatever you want. You just need to implement a method which loads the user in the form of user details, that is the authentication object. Okay, user details is the authentication object. So what this thing is doing is this method is saying get me the user in form of in form of authent auth object. So it is user details, right? So now we are just going to copy this. We will put it here. It is the same thing. Okay. So it is saying that, hey, load the user info and find by email ID using the email ID, right? So let me create this method inside this our user info depot. So if you will see here, it is saying add the missing method. So let's add it here. We say that, hey, optional means that it can be empty, right? User info entity. So we are trying to find the user based on the email ID. And what we are doing again, We are finding it by the email ID. We are saying that, okay, whatever the user that you have found, let's map it into the information config using this. And what this thing is doing is it is just returning me our user details object, right? So we are returning user details object, which is being used here. And if I don't find anything, I'm just sending a exception which says that, hey, user email is not found. Fine. So in a sequence, basically load the user, map it to in the form of user details, and how we are mapping? We are mapping it into the form of this user config. Okay. Let me close these two. Okay. One more part is there. Okay. To say that now we need to create the APIs. Let's first create the A. Okay. Okay. Let's first create in the security config. Um. Okay. So here we are saying that, hey, let's first create a security config. Security config is basically a class which it's user defined class, but its work and generally it is defined as security config itself. So it is the first class which interact with your API. After, of course, after all the application Spring Boot application work, and after all the creating of the bean, it will come to the security config. The API, when the application starts, the API come to the security config. And how it will come to this, based on these annotations. So here we have enable web security. With the enable web security, the HTTP APIs always come here with the help of security filter chain, and it checks that what we want to do with it. So let me copy it, paste it here, and let me tell you what this thing is doing. Okay. So we are saying that, hey, we are creating a security filter chain. Okay. And how this thing works, API, you do a API call. With this API call, it sees the URI. So it sees the URI, it will come. Okay. So if the URI is starting with, suppose, API welcome message, it will come here. Okay, so the API is of cut, like, type this. It will come here. It will make the CSRF disable. We are not using CSRF. It is saying that, hey, whenever you see the API of this format, let's authorize it. Okay. Any request which is coming as like this, let's authenticate it. Sorry, not authorize it, authenticate it. And how we are authenticating it? We are using user details service. And where we have user details service, we have user details service here, right? Using the load by username. So we will just use user info manager config, the class where our user details service is written. So let me remove this form login. We don't need it. Let's do a static import for this. Okay, now this thing is looking fine. And one more, you see, one more yeah, security filter chain that I have given is for S2 console. And why I'm doing these things, like, because our S2 console, if I will run this application now, you will not be able to see our S2 console. Let me run this. You will be, let me first, the, uh, I mean, let me comment it out. Let's restart the application. If I will just do localhost S2 console, let me connect it. Uh, Let me restart the application. I believe it is taking the previous one. Okay, delete from the S2 console. Okay. So yeah, so why we are writing this for the H2 console is simply okay. Okay, so here we have for the H2 console start. Here we have for the H2 console. So for the H2 console is basically we are saying one database, right? So we are saying that hey, whenever a request of the type H2 console is coming here, let's not authorize anything because we don't want to keep on pinging the API, authenticating it to see the H2 console. Okay, and yeah, and here we are just saying that hey, make enable the frame option like the iframe on which it is displaying. So let's start the application and see what I mean by that. So if you will see our table has been created, right? So if you will just refresh it, so this is our iframe that I'm talking about. So if you will see, you don't have any user, right? So our next thing is to add the user so that we are able to see it. So I like let's create a command line runner to create the user. In the config, create a package called user config, and in this let's add a this initial user info class, and it implements basically command line runner. So command runner basically whenever the application starts, this will run, right? So let's implement this method. It has only one method called void run. So I will just copy and paste this code. Okay, let me copy this whole class itself. So you will see that what I'm doing here is I'm taking the password encoder as well here, which is giving it wrong. If I will comment it, why I'm using it here is basically to encode our password. So let I will add it, but let's see what else is there. In this void run, we have user entity manager. I'm just setting the username, password, role, and email ID, right? This is all I'm doing, and I'm saving this thing into user info repo in our repo, right? And we should be encrypting our password. We should not directly put our password into text format. Okay, so how I will add that, if you will see here, I have given it that also in the security config. Go again back to security config and see that hey, our encryption is our password encryption is used by bicrypt in password encoder. Okay, it is a standard. If you want, you can use some complex algorithm as well, but bicrypt is fine. Okay, let's close this thing. Initial info. So now the error has gone. So it is fine, right? Now, if you will restart the application, now if you will just restart the application and go to the H2 console, and here also you should see that the three user has been added. So if you will just uh, refresh your H2 console in this, you will see that three user has been added, right? What else? So with this user you want to access the APIs, right? So let's create okay, let's move all the user configuration here. Let me refactor it. Let me refactor this also. I have moved all related to user in this user config. Okay, so that like everything is much more segregated. Now let we need to create the API. Okay, create a package called controller. In this controller we have a dashboard controller. You can give any name, you know, right? Like the class name you can give and whatever you want to. Let me copy this whole thing here, put it there, and let's see what is happening in this. Okay, so just controller, as we are returning the JSON body, right? If you are working with the front end, you just need to write controller. I believe you must be knowing it. So request mapping, anything, any API starting with the any request coming in the form of API oblique something will come here. And for this we have security config, right? That we just did. That anything starting with the API will come to this part. Okay. So we are creating the three APIs called first of all is by welcome user, manager message, and admin message. And in this, we are saying this pre-authorize has any role. What does this mean? So if you will see in the security config, we have also added a enable method level security. Method level security does what? It along with checking the authentication that you have, that you just created, that you have the admin and password is correct or not. It will also check that are you having the correct roles or not. You just created the user, right? You have the correct roles or not. And that's how our authentication object works, right? So in the dashboard controller, if you will see, let me import this security code. Okay, fine. Yeah, so in this, we will just check that whatever the user that you are having, it is having any role for the manager, admin, or user not. If you are accessing welcome API, if you are accessing manager API, then your role should be role underscore manager. If you are having want to access admin message, then role should be admin. Okay, so basically here the authentication object is basically before you are getting verified, you can use it here, and it will also have the authentication dot get authorities which you can read. I will just show you in the API what does this mean. This basically gets you this role that you have given. Okay, and principal is basically once you are verified, then you will receive a principal object. And how this thing is helpful, if you are creating the UI, you can just display it in the front end that who has logged in. Okay, so now everything is looking fine. Let's restart the application, and I will bring the postman here. Okay, so you have seen the demo, we have these API, right? So first of all, let's start with the welcome message. So in the auth, go to the and I have given this thing in the postman also. So this postman complete collection is given to you. So in the auth, you basically just write the API oblique welcome message, and let's do the basic auth with the admin and this. So if you're admin, you will be able to access everything, right? So it will say that, hey, welcome, blah, 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 admin, come with the scope, role underscore admin. So suppose if I want to access manager API with basic auth, instead of manager, I will just write admin at the rate admin.com. Let's see if you are going to access it or not. No, you will not be able to access it though username and password is correct. Why? Because the role which is mentioned here, right? Only manager can access it. So create, let's give here manager at the rate manager.com. So this is we are going to exit it. So and let's see with the admin message. Let's do basic auth here. Basic auth. Let's send the message. So we have this API over here. In the database also, if you want to check that uh, if everything is all the three users are there or not. So let's clear it. User info, run this state. Okay, let's connect it. User info, run this. So all three users are there. So we are able to see the JPA, and we are able to do the all the API sort of stuff, right? This is the second part. Let's start working with the fun stuff, that is the access token. So now we will be creating the access token, and for this we will be require an RSA key, which is the private and public key. Generally, I have written all the details here. If you want to read in detail, like you can read it here. But what I am saying here in short is that this is the best way. Asymmetric keys are the best way to encrypt and decrypt your JWT tokens. And what asymmetric means is basically you will have a public and a private key for encryption and decryption instead of having just a single key, and which is the industry standard. Asymmetric keys of having the both public and private keys separately is the industry standard. Okay, so we will be using OpenSSL for the encryption. sorry, for creating the RSA keys. So if you don't have any OpenSSL installed in your system, what you can simply do is basically come to this repo, right? In this repo, if you will go, okay, so in this repo, if you will go to the source, main, and resources, and inside the certs folder, you will have the private key and public key. You can just open it, copy this thing, go to this project here, create a folder resource called directory certs, certs, and in this you can just this file is basically what private key. Let me copy this name here, private key.pem, create private key.pem, copy this whole thing, put it here, and close it. It is as simple as that, like that. But if you have the OpenSSL, there is a way to write this thing. And in a similar way, you have to, I mean, in the search, you need to create the public key as well. Let me copy this and put this thing here. Uh, public key.pem. Inside this, let me close this. This is fine, right? So if you don't have OpenSSL, I believe you should install it. Otherwise, you can do in this way to create the public and private key. Okay, I will show you one other way. Let me go to Spring Security, go to readme.md file again, and you can skip this part, right? Totally skip this part. Let me delete this. Let me delete this too. And okay, so let me go to the terminal, and here I need to go to the search folder cd resources, cd, and here it is in src main resources. Let's go to the search folder, and now I will just copy this line. Let me tell you what it does. It is saying that, hey, OpenSSL generate an RSA key with a key and pair with a with a file size of 2048. So it is created, right? Key pair is created. Now I will copy this. I will put it again here, and what it says it, hey, again, we for the RSA key we have input of key pair. Let's create a public key output. Okay, so if you will see here, we have a public key as an output. Now again, I can use this key pair as a private and this public key as a public key, right? But we need a PKCS8 encryption file for our encryption, right? So let's put it here, press enter. We will receive our private key. Why it is not coming? Okay, okay, so private key is here. Let me delete this key pair. Now if you will see, the private key is here and public key is here, similar to what we have. It is not the same, but it is similar. So your code will also work. So here, if you want to read, it is saying that, hey, I want pkcs8 format file. We will have the key pair as we are giving it here, and we have our output as a private key, and we are not doing any encryption for our public and private key. You can give the encryption, but the problem will be like, not the problem for this tutorial, the problem will be it will ask you for creating the paraphrase, and then that paraphrase you have to use it everywhere. Okay, so everything's sorted, right? If even if you don't have this OpenSSL, it is fine. I hope you guys understood. Okay, let me close this public private key. Let me close everything now. Okay, so now how we are going to use these two for our encryption and description for our JSON web token. Okay, let me go down. Okay, first we have to use this RSA public key and private key, right? So in the config, let's create a file called RSA key record, and it is a record, right? So let me copy this, and I will tell you what I'm doing it here. So we are saying that, hey, we are creating RSA key record, with the parameters of RSA public key and private key. Okay, and we will have a prefix of JWT for the configuration properties. So for adding this configuration properties are stayed in here, right? So for adding this into the configuration of the properties, we will have to go to the application, and if you will see the error that it says that, hey, not registered, enable configuration properties for our application. So let me go to the our application, let's put it there and say that, hey, RSA key record class is for adding our configuration. So, okay, adding our configuration for this public and private key, for our public and private key. So let me if you'll just go here, if you will just write now JWT, it will say private key, right? And here in RSA public key, both are here. Let me copy this, put it here, and okay. So we are saying that, hey, for the JWT token, for the private key, we have in the class path certs, we have a folder and we have a file called private key.pem and public key.pem. So it is fine, right? If you will restart the application, you will have this private key, public key accessible to your application. So now let's start the security filter chain. As I suggested earlier, what is security filter chain? Whenever the API come, whenever they need the interaction with the API, it will come to the security filter chain itself, right? So what we are going to use this security filter chain. So let's tell you how JWT works. So when you are signing in, right? When you are sign in the application, you use your username and password, right? To sign in your application. Once you are signed in, the application will send you the access token, which will have role and which will have all the permissions that you require to access your uh, other APIs, like all the other APIs, data APIs and all. So when you're using username and password, right, it will be using this user detail service to authenticate this, and it will return the access token. And this access token is nothing but JWT token. Okay, so let's design this sign-in API. I will just copy this thing and let me put this thing here, and I will just rename this thing to sign in. Let me just copy this line, sign in security filter chain, sign in security filter chain, and here I will say that, hey, if the user is going to sign in, let's make, yes, of course, let's authenticate this user using user details and this, and I will make this thing session say stateless. So what it means is we are not going to store this information, and what it means is basically that for every request coming for sign in, you need to do the authentication. We are not saving this information. Okay, let me add this exception handler also. So here, HTTP, if there is any exception, if there is any problem occurs while authenticating or anything, we are just sending this message like creating this exception. It is fine, right? So everything looks correct. Let me remove this thing also, so that it doesn't confuse you. So you're understanding, right, why we are doing sign in with this, where this success token goes. This will come after this step. So after sign in, everything is correct. It will return the access token, and using that access token, we are going to access all these API. Okay. So now our next step is to create the sign in endpoint. Let me go to the project. It is saying that auth controller, right? Let me copy this name. Let me go to the controller. Let's create a file called auth controller. Here we will write our all the authentication endpoint, like sign in, sign out, login, like whatever it is there. Okay, So here we are saying that hey, sign in, and for this security config we have here, right? So for the sign in we are using user details manager service, right? So let me import this authentication object here. Okay, so what we are basically, this endpoint will return the authentication object, right? Like whatever you require, and what we require is basically, let me create this file. Let's create a package called DTO, and in this I will write auth response DTO, auth response DTO. Let me copy this, put it here. So there's a token type. Let me add token type, token, and let me explain you what everything is. And here our token type is bear token. Let me close this thing, auth controller. So as I said, whenever you are going to sign in, right? Whenever you are going to sign in, you are going to get the access token, JWT access token, right? Using which you are going to access the API. So how you are going to get the access token? We just created an object called auth response DTO, and this will have this access token, the expiry. And what does the expiry mean? If suppose you are hitting the endpoint called API, right? If you are hitting the endpoint called API and you have the access token, whatever the access token is you are having, it is only available for 30 seconds. Since you received it, plus 30 seconds, you can access this API. So this is a security feature basically, so that like you are, suppose you are going to the bank website or somewhere. There is when you logged in, and if you went out from your screen, right? If this expiry is not there, then till the time you log out, your banking application is continuously open. It is not a secured thing, right? So in this way, how we can safeguard is basically to give the expiry of suppose 1 minute or 2 minutes, so that like even though if you have left your screen open, n- after 1 minute or something, nobody will be able to access anything from your application, right? So this token type is basically just saying that hey, what kind of token we are using. We're using beer token for the JSON web token, and this is the username that I was talking about, that is useful to display for like who has logged in. You can add different things here, that his image URL or whatnot, which is there from the database. Okay, but for our purpose, this thing is fine. Okay, you understood, right? What is the auth response DTO? Okay, let's go to the auth controller. One more thing that we require here is auth service, right? So what in the auth service we are doing? We are writing all the business logic, and what business logic we are doing? Get JWT token after authentication. So once you reached here, the authentication is all done, right? Because we are already doing our authentication here, right? So once you have the authentication, you are returning this. So let me create a service package called service. Here just write auth service, auth service. So okay, let's create the method there. Okay, now we have this method there. Let me copy this file, let me put it here. I will explain you what this thing is doing again, right? So don't worry about this thing. First of all, we are saying that hey, in this method, right? Like as you saw that, like we are calling this method to get our access token. We are saying that hey, this user, whoever the user is, get every details about him from the database. So if you have seen, right, from the database, it is getting all the details. Hey, if the user is logged in as a user, what what other details is they having? So we are having role and username and whatnot. So these all are coming into the user info entity. Using this, we are just basically ga- creating a using this we are basically creating the access token, right? So let's see, let's see how we are creating the access token. So yeah, sorry, one more thing. Whenever you are logged in, right, as I said, like this is the authentication object. And earlier I explained you, right, like different authentication object and the principal object. So once you are logged in, this authentication object is coming here. And this authentication object is nothing but the user details itself. So if you are coming here, we have this user details, and this is in the form of authentication object, right? Which is being used to create the access token. So let's create a file called JWT token generator where we will have this. So in the config, let's create a new package called JWT config. Okay, let's me put this thing inside the config itself. Refactor, and inside this, let's create a JWT token generator. So what its main purpose is to generate a token generator. Let me copy this. Let me put this thing here, and I will tell you what this thing is doing. Okay, so we are saying that, hey, in here we are saying that, hey, using the authentication object for whoever is logged in, generate a token. So if you will go here, let me import this authentication security code. So we are saying that, hey, let's get the role for the whatever the user that I am having here. So get role of, basically it is again, let me, okay. So get user role from the authentication. So authentication that get authorities, as we have seen in the demo, right? So let me, so in the welcome message, this role underscore admin is the authorities, right? So if you will go here inside our demo controller, so authentication dot get authorities is our role which we have in our database also, right? Like these are our role. So in the token generator, we are saying simply that, hey, let's get the authorities, right? And right now our authorities are in the form of what? In the form of a string, right? With sorry, in the form of arrays. So, and why I'm saying in the form of arrays? Because we have the user details, right? The class. So if you will see in the user, where is that config? User info config. We are converting the user details in the form of this, right? Authorities. So now, let me minimize it, go to this access token. We are saying that, hey, let's get the role in the form of a string. So why in the form of a string? So let's get the all the authorities because it is in the form of I mean arrays right now, and let's convert into the form of authority, whatever the not convert, let's map everything, whatever the roles that we are having in the form of array. These are all the roles, and let's create this based on let's create it in the form of a string. So here it will be form of, suppose, role underscore admin, admin with a space. If you have multiple roles, role underscore manager. So from here we are getting the array, here we are getting the in the form of a string. So we are going to use a string, that's why. Okay, and let's with the rules, as I explained earlier, between the roles and permission, right? So every role can correspond to multiple permissions. So let's convert the role in the form of permissions. So what kind of permission that we can have? So if you have a role admin, you can do read, write, delete. If you are a manager, just read. If you are user, just read. You can definitely append whatever you want to. And we are creating a set here. Why? Because suppose if you have role admin and you will have a manager, and you will have a list of permissions, then read will like replicate, right? Read is here, read is here. To remove that and to return a simple string with just the space, we are using this set. So now we will have read, if suppose if somebody is admin as well as manager, the role will say that read a space, write a space, delete itself. Okay, fine, right? So now we have the permissions. Now what we are doing it here. this is our token creation. So this token is being created here, which is called claims. And here we are saying that who is creating this access token or whatever the token is being created. It is being created by the application called SQL. You can write whatever you want. And what time it is created? Instant dot now. Now it is being created. When it is going to expire? So now whatever the time it is there plus 15 minutes. So as I said, an access token is for very small durations. It should be for very small duration so that nobody can access it. Refresh token is there for very long duration, which will in turn return the access token. I will explain it later, don't worry. So subject is basically the username. Like for our case, it is the email ID. So we can write here not get okay. So authentication dot get name is basically our email ID. Don't confuse it with the name. So here whatever you are doing it for the login, it is coming as a get name. So this is what? This is the email ID. Okay. Claims is basically what kind of permissions that you are going to give for that particular person. So in our case, these are the permissions that we have. Okay. So and let's build this whole thing. Now we are saying that we have created the JWT token. Let's encode it so that when we are sending it back to the user, right? When we are sending it back to the user, it doesn't get hacked or something. Okay, because we have the encode like private key and public key. So for encoding and decoding, we will have to follow the encoder and decoder, right? Let's add encoder and decoder into our security config. Let's open the security config. And this encoder decoder is coming from where? From the OpenSSL encryption for the RSA key that we did, right? So let's copy this and we'll explain you what we are doing it here. Let's import this from the Nimbus. Okay, and let's copy this RSA key record. Okay, so now we are saying that first let's encode it. So we are encoding whatever the values that we are receiving. So what we are receiving it here in token generated, we are receiving the claims and we are saying that hey, encode this whole thing, right? We are encoding this claims. So we can encode basically everything, but here we are encoding our JWT token. And what we are doing in security config, yeah, we are saying that hey, we have a public key and we have a private key for this, and using this let's encode it. Okay, what we are saying, we have a public key, we have a private key, let's create an object, and with this object let's encode it into using the Nimbus JWT encoder. In the similar way as we are using Nimbus, right? Let's decode it using the public key. So we are decoding using the public key, but we are encoding using the private key for the security purpose, right? So now we have created the bean, and how we are getting this value? Using the private pen RSA key record. And this RSA key record we have in application dot YAML, right? Like so here are the keys. Understood, right? Let me close this in auth controller. We are going here, we are generating the token, and now whatever the token that we have created, we are returning it back. Okay, everything seems legit and fair. Now, one more thing we need to do basically, in not in this, in demo controller. So if you see that we are using has any role, so role is basically when we are using the authentication purpose. So generally for the method level security and when we are using the JSON web token, we use authority instead of role. So if I will use this, it will throw error. Let me show you. Just a wait a minute. Let me go to JWT token generator and we are using it here, right? Oh yeah, I was about to explain you here this, sorry. So now we have the access token here. We are saying that auth response DTO, right? In this we created this DTO, right, to return to the user. So in this, wait, it will be generator. Go here. This access token, let's give the access token. We are just telling them that hey, expire is for 15 minutes, so 15 into 60 seconds, so it will be in the form of seconds there in for the user. So username is basically from the user entity. We are giving their token type, we are saying bearer, so everything looks correct, right? So let's restart the application again, and our main purpose is to see if we have the access token or not. So if we will just do the sign in, we have sign in API, right, that we just created. If we will do this, we are receiving the access token. Let me copy this access token. Let me go to, we're using admin, right? Let me go to the manager and let's change it to bearer token. Let's put my access token there, and we are not able to get this API value. Why? Because we are saying that let's go to demo controller, we are dashboard controller, sorry, we are saying that has any role, but this doesn't correspond to any role, this corresponds to authority, right? So let's copy this as any authority, a of read scope of read, let's make it a scope of write. Let me comment this thing. These are called permissions, right? So and how this is coming, again I'm just going to show you in use, not in user config, in here, yeah. While generating the token, we are converting the roles to the permissions. So this is fine, right? Roles and permission is done. Okay, if you have any doubts, please comment and I will explain you. Okay, so now let's restart this. Okay, one more thing we need to add. Sorry, sorry, I forgot. So in our security config, we haven't told yet that like, hey, this API, whatever the API is there, we have to use the JWT token, right? The access token to access this thing. So for this, let me, these are all fine, authenticated. Instead of this, we need to use the OAuth server. Let's copy this, and this. So this is very similar. Um, okay, these are the logs. Let me just write SL4J here. SL4J, so that our logging is correct. So we are just saying that, hey, we are using OAuth2 resource server that we imported, right? I mean, while building the application, this dependency was there. We are saying that let's use JWT with defaults for authenticating our this, and we are not managing any session, which is the stateless. It means basically that you, for any API call, you again and again have to give the access token. Okay, so this looks fine, and it is one. Let me convert this order to two. Let me convert this order to three. And yeah, let's restart the application. So now, if we are going to give this send, we are going to see the API. And now, your question should be, why even after restarting the application, the same access token that I created, I mean, a while back is working fine. So this is the wonder of, I mean, not only wonder, this is the security flaw of access token as well. Even though your application restarts, even though if you will just delete the user, let me just delete the user. Let me go here. Not this one is done. So let me go this, reload it. So connect again. So this access token is being created by the, let me create the access token again by the admin, right? So using the admin, I will just copy it and I will use the admin message to get the value. Let me change it to be a token. Let me put the access token here. I'm getting this value, right? So let me delete this admin itself. So in the user, let me delete this admin. So ideally, what should happen if you have suppose for authentication, if you have used this user detail service, it would have not found the user, and the API call that we are going to do here would have been invalid. But as we are using the access token, even though if you have deleted the user, if you have the access token and it is not expired, you will be able to get this value. So that's why it is little bit scary, right? Because it has all the information that is required to be authenticated. That is the reason we need to keep it as expiry as like 1 minute, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. Okay. So your next question will be coming to your mind that like what happened in the logout moment. So when you do the logout, basically you remove this access token from the user browser cache from wherever you have stored this thing, user access token. And if you want a added layer of security, then you need to keep a blacklisting the access token whenever you log out. So it is not for this course purpose. So let's get add. Okay, we need to work on so many things now. Okay, so we have tested this thing. Now add what is this JW filter is. So as I just showed you, right? Even though the user is deleted, it is working fine. So at least let's safeguard that part using the filter. So filter, what it does is whenever this API request comes in, whenever the API will come in here, it will see the JWT token that you have, and it will do some sort of validation. For once, it will also check if the user exists or not if you want to add it there. So let's add JWT filter. Okay, so let's add first this JWT token filter inside our JWT config token filter here added. Let me copy this and I will explain what this thing is doing. Okay, okay, now. Okay, don't worry about this. We will see what this thing is doing. So basically, it is doing login, and yeah, now whatever the request that you are sending, right? You will have a URL, right? So in that URL, when you're sending with the access token, like how we saw here, right? This is the access token. If you will expand this as a code, this is having the header, which is having the authorization, right? And with having the bearer as a starting, and with the gap, and this is the token, right? So what we are saying here is let's get the auth header. So what is the auth header? The authorization that we just saw. This is the auth header. Wherever this is the auth header, so this value it will receive. So once it received this value here, now with this, sorry for that. Now we just skip this line for now. Okay. So we are just saying that like, hey, this auth header is having the bearer as starting point or not. It started bearer or not. If it doesn't start with bearer, maybe the token itself is wrong. So if it doesn't start with the bearer, it means the token itself is wrong. So we will just refuse to accept any other further process on this. If it is correct, then we are saying that hey, whatever the thing which is there after the seventh word of this auth header is a token, right? The JSON web token that we are having. So let me count one, like period 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and with the space 7. So give me this. This is my token. This is my access token. So let me open this. This is my access token, right? That you just saw. And with this access token, let's convert it into the form of JWT itself. So this JWT decoder, right? And how this decoder is coming? we have the RSA key record, right? That we just created the coded and decoded. So we just encoded it and now we are just decoding it. So if we are coming here, we are going to decode it in the form of JWT. JWT decoded or decode whatever the string, the token that we are going to have it here. Okay. Now we are also now we need to just get the name out of this token. So we are creating a JWT token utils. So let's create the JWT token utils. It will be helpful. So in this JWT token utils. So let me go down here, copy this. So okay, import this JWT auth2. Yeah, okay. We will come here, like we will go in a sequence by itself. So we are saying that, hey, what we need to get? We need to get the username from this. Why we need to get a username? So that we can check that if this user exists itself or not. But for whoever the token is created, we saw now, like we just deleted the admin. So we need this admin@admin.com from this value, this token value, right? So that's what we are doing it here. We convert it in the form of JWT and we are going to get the username. So how we are going to get the username? It is simply having a method, inbuilt method called get subject. So simply why we are using JWT token utils? Instead I could have just directly used it like JWT token here, like suppose a string x equal to JWT token dot get subject here itself, right? But so that whatever the function that we are doing on the JWT token, we can do it in a single file. So it is called separation of concern. It is a much better way. Okay, this method is only work should be to generate a to filter it out, filter the JWT token, right? So let's get the username, and if username is empty, then we are just saying that hey, this user doesn't exist and we are not processing anything. So if the user is not empty, if the user is found and the security context holder is not equal to null, it means that you have you have the authentication object, right? If doesn't have, then also it will return as null. So you must be having some sort of authentication object here. Once you have that, you can just check that this user exists or not. So if you like user details, like user details, so let me convert. So first of all, we are creating the user details. User details is what is the authentication object, right? As you can see, where we have used. Okay, let me not. We have converted our user entity to user details, right? Here in this, we have converted our user entity into user details, right? Same thing we are doing it here. We are saying that, hey, token utils for the username this, find this thing in the repo and convert the thing in the form of user details. So we are saying that user info repo in the from the user info repo, just find the user, convert into the user info config, and return me the user details. We could have directly used load by username also, but both are fine. Okay, and why I'm saying load by username? If you will see here, this thing is also returning user details based on the email ID, right? So if you will see, both methods are doing the same stuff, right? Here, both methods are doing the same stuff. So, but it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Let's go to here. Okay. So now we have the user details object. This is the authentication object for our user info entity, where our all user details is there. We are just saying that, hey, can you check if token is valid or not for this JWT token that we have here and for this user details? Let's see what this token is checking. First, it is checking if username is there or not. So string, sorry, whatever the username is there, we are receiving it here. And now with this username, it is checking that is this token is they even there or not, like in our database. So whatever the user we have there in the whatever the user we have, and whatever the from the token that we are receiving, from database we are receiving, is both are same or not. Like suppose from the token we received admin@admin.com, is it same from the user details or not? Because user details is getting from database, and uh, this username we are receiving from the token. So both are same or not. Is token expired is basically checking that what is the expiry date on that token, right? We have on the token whatever the expiry thing is there. So we are saying that hey, if token is not expired, and if it is whatever the user, it is same in the database as well as in the token, then return true. Okay, so is token is valid? So token is valid. So if token is valid, let's create a security context holder and add our authentication object. What is the user details into it? Okay, and let's return our user details with the complete user. Uh, let's set the security context center and return our request response with the user with the authentication object. So this whole thing we are doing here. So if you will see, this is the last part. Okay, and let us go to the security config. I believe we have done the security config thing. Yeah, we have added OAuth2 resource server. So let's start the application, and we will do the same thing again. Let's do the sign in for the admin. We have the access token. Let's log in with, get the access of this admin message using this. Let's delete this admin. If you will just refresh it, connect it, see the user info, you will see admin is present here. Let me delete this admin. Now, you should not be able to access this endpoint. Earlier, we were able to. Okay, why this is accessing it? So, okay. So the problem here is we didn't even add the filter here, right? Though we have created the filter, we haven't added it. So let's add the filter. Let's copy this whole line. Let's put it after this. And we are just saying that, hey, add the filter before whatever you are doing, the auth server, whatever we are doing, add the filter before it. We have the filter called JWT token access filter, which will have the RSA key record and JWT token util. Which let me add JWT token util. Let me copy this and let me put it here. So we are just saying that, hey, before doing anything, let's add the filter here. RSA key record with token utils, and it will have a user name password authentication filter, so that once you receive this, everything should be fine. Let's restart the application again, and let's refresh this thing. Let's connect this thing, user info in this. Let's see. Okay, so it might have expired. So let me sign in again. Let's use this API. Okay, I'm able to receive this. Now delete this user called admin, and I hope it should not. Okay, it is giving the error. Perfect, fine, right? So at least one thing that you have aborted. If you delete the user, and if suppose in future you have some logic that you want to put, you can put it in the user info entity table itself, and you can say that a private call, like logged out or something, which you can update whenever we are logging out. You can put it here, And in the filter, you can basically check when we are doing the validity check here, right? Where when we are doing the validity check here, right? Here you can also check that if it is not expired, then let's also check that if the user is having, I mean, active or not, something like that. You can also check it here. Okay, so I believe it is fine. If it is expired, you're checking there, so it is fine, right? Okay, so now the next part is for the refresh token, and I have written something here. Let's read it. Access token is basically used for no, authentication. I believe I need to correct this. It should be for authentication, not authorization. Please, it should be for authentication, and references token is for no, 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 sorry. I was right here. The access token is basically for authorization. Once you sign in, which is called the authentication, you need to get the permissions, right? Like what kind of API that you can do activity on. So it is for the authorization, and reference token is basically to get this access token. Okay. So X token is short-lived, and this is long-lived, and generally basically in responsibility you can return it, but refresh token you should return it in the form of HTTP only cookie, and it is the industry standard. So let's work on it. So we generally stored our refresh token into our database so that we can always match that for the particular user. If whoever is there, whenever he is sending the refresh token, is it valid or not? This is for double validation, right? So let's create an entity. Let's create what entity called refresh token entity. Java class refresh token entity. Let's copy this, put it here, so everything should be fine. Yeah. So what values that we are having here? Same thing, right? Entity, table, builder, whatever. Table name is refresh tokens. So generated this, I explained. Okay, so now we will have a refresh token stored, and for one user can have multiple refresh token. And what I mean by this is, suppose you're creating application which is integrating with multiple different application. Like you have a Google account, right? So your Google account is connected with your suppose your Uber, Ola, or whatnot. So for all those application, to get access to those applications store a refresh token. So refresh token is getting for the access token, right? So for this purpose, generally it should be many to many. If you want a user to have multiple refresh token associated with different application, okay. And boolean revoked is basically saying that is this refresh token which is there, is it revoked or not? Did the user sign out or not? If it is signed out, if it will be true, so we will not be able to use that particular refresh token. Okay. And here also please see that here we have given the string length of 10,000 so that we can accommodate whatever the refresh token we have. So if you have 2048 bit size length for your RSA key, so that if you have 408 something, you should increase this length here. Okay. I'm forgetting the length size, 2048 and 4084, something like that is there. Okay. So this is for storing the refresh token, and if it is for many to one, then we will also have to change the user. Where is this user info entity to add many to one relation? Sorry, one to many relation. It says that simply one user can have multiple refresh token. And user fetch type lazy, so that whenever you are extracting the value for the user, this doesn't come along. Okay. Let's add a repo called refresh token repo. It is interface. Let me copy this, put it here, so everything is looking fine. Okay, it is for the mapping. Now it is saying that, hey, create a refresh token generator. So we already have a token generator, right? In config, token config, token generator. So in this token generator, we are generating what? We are generating the access token. Let's copy this and we need to create a refresh token. So generate refresh token. Process is almost same. So in refresh token, we don't need roles and permissions. Whenever we are taking generating refresh token, generally you can leave this thing blank, but I prefer to give a specific permission that is called, let me copy this, refresh token. And why I deleted these roles and permissions, so that using this refresh token you should not be able to access any sort of data APIs, right? So let me copy this log as well, and let me convert it to 15 days instead of minutes, days, so that within this 15 days you can, like, this token will be active. Scope is fine, encoder, so generate refresh token, it is all fine. Now with this refresh token, we need to uh, create the API, right? Like, we need to modify the API to send this refresh token along whenever you are doing the sign in, right? So let's go to the auth service, not auth service, auth, yeah, auth service. So what is happening now? As I said, whenever you are signing in, whenever you are signing in, you will receive access token in response object, and you will also receive a refresh token without permission permissions to access other APIs, to access data API in HTTP only cookie, which you can use to get the access token, right? So let me remove this. I hope your understanding of access token, refresh token is clear by now. Okay, so what we are doing here is, this is being used when we are doing signing, right? So here we need to return the refresh token. So I could have just added a one more path, like one more parameter here, refresh token, but it is, and I believe most of the tutorials is saying like that itself, returning here itself, but it is not advisable. We'd only use HTTP only cookie. Okay, so that from the UI it is just little bit safer for in kind of hacking attacks. Okay, so let's modify something here. Let's add, say that, hey, let's add a refresh token here, because we already have in token generator refresh token, right? So we'll have the refresh token. Now this refresh token needs to be saved, right? First, this refresh token needs to be saved as well as created into the cookie. So let's first save this refresh token in our database so that we can match if refresh token is I mean for the future purpose. So let's create this method. Create this method. Here is this method. Let's copy this, put it here. Refresh token repo is needed. Let's add private final refresh token repo, refresh token repo. So what we are doing here is simply we are creating a refresh token entity and we are simply saving it. It's revoked false. Revoke means, like, if you're logging out, then you are making it true, right? So we are sending the refresh token value, we are saving the user info entity, and we are saving the refresh token. So if now we have saved the refresh token, now let's create the cookie. So we have created a method. Let me Okay, so yeah, for adding the HTTP cookie, what we need is the servlet response object. So let me go to this. Let me add one HTTP servlet response. Yeah, servlet response. This this response object we need so that we can return the cookie. So let me go to this. Here also, let's add HTTP solid response. So let me put this thing here. Oh, here. So this HTTP solid response basically return the cookie object, right? So now we will create this method called create refresh token from cookie, and let's create this method here. I will just copy this and explain how this cooking is being created. It will be servlet HTTP. Okay, perfect. So now this cookie is being created with the name called refresh token. Okay, where I'm saying that HTTP, it is a HTTP type with true. It is a secured one, and for how much time it is there for this copy will exist, it should be similar to your refresh token expiry date. So it is for 15 days, that is 24 multiplied 24 hours, 24 hours is 1 day, right? Into the 60 minute into 60 seconds. So it is in seconds, right? So I'm calculating with for the 15 days, and we have set for the refresh token expiry also for 15 days, right? In the our token generator. Where is that token generator? JWT token generator. Here we are setting for 15 days. Similarly, right? So auth controller, let's go to sign in. Now we have cookie ready. So this whole process is now done. Why this thing is saying make method void? If you want, you can make the method void. Otherwise, it's also fine. Like the solid response, also it is fine because we are not using its return value. We are just setting the response object, right? So let me show you where this cookie exists if you are using the postman. So now if you will do the sign in, you will see in the cookie you have, let me remove this, let me do it again. If you will see, here is the refresh token. So in this refresh token is there. This refresh token is not the access token, as I will show you here. Using this, you will not be able to access any of the API. Okay, so this refresh token is needed to get the new access token. So let's now create an endpoint for getting the access token. So in the auth service, in the auth controller, where is controller? Auth controller, let's create the API where when we send this refresh token, it will give us the new access token. So let's see, I'm saying that the refresh token should have the authority of scope underscore refresh underscore token. We have given, right? Refresh token. So let me decrease this thing to 1 minute so that you understand the benefit of refresh token, right? So in 1 minute, this access token gets expired. So 1 minute is very short duration, right? So in this short duration, this will expire. We will use refresh token to get the new access token. Okay, in the auth controller, let's create this method generate x generate token using the refresh token. So let me copy this thing from here to here. Okay, so let's see what we are doing here. Generate token using the refresh token. We are getting the authorization header. Let me see what this authorization header is. We are just getting this value. Authorization header is basically here, right? Like I showed you. This is called the authorization header. So we will be just getting the token value from there, the refresh token value from there. Okay, so we will be getting this token value here and we will be sending it to our method, where we will first check that for whatever the user we are sending this, is it even there or not? Is it in the S2 console? If I will just clear this, if I will refresh this, you will see refresh token should be there. Refresh token is there, right? So I'm just want to see that for whatever the user it is there, if I'm sending the refresh token, is it even present in the database or not? If it is present, then, and if revoked is true, sorry, if revoke is false, that is he is not logged in, return the new access token so that he can use that access token to have the values from the dashboard APIs. Okay, so let's start with the authorization header. We are just checking the authorization header should start with the bearer name. If it is not, then return the error. We are just getting the refresh token similar to here, right? Similar to this. Where is that? Okay. Yeah, like we are just returning the substring for 7, like bearer after bearer, there is space, and after that token is there, right? So here we are getting the refresh token using that, and we are finding this refresh token in our database. So if whatever from the database is the user ID is 2, so what we will be doing is, let me clear user ID, user info, and user ID 2. So we are seeing that whatever the refresh token we are sending, is it the same user, which if it is the same user, if user is there, right? If user is there, is it the same user that authentication is giving? I mean, like from the token we are getting, is both are same or not? So let's do find by refresh token. Let's create a method. Uh, Here we will write optional, write refresh token entity, and now we are finding the refresh token from the here, right? We are finding the refresh token. We are saying that is it revoked? If it is not revoked, then give the value. Otherwise, say that hey, whatever the refresh token that you are sending me to get the access token, it is revoked. Okay, please sign in again or whatnot. Now, from this refresh token entity that we received, let's get the username. And with this username, let's create the authentication object. Now we have to create the authentication object, right? So using the user info entity. So there's a method called, like we will create a method, our own method here. Let's copy this, paste it here. So what we are doing is, for creating the authentication object is, hey, getting the user email ID, password, and the role. This is very important, role. And this role we are converting into the form of granted authorities that we have, right? So role is in the form of string that we have, right? So those string, I like to remember, like in our database, the roles are in the form of a string and separated with the commas. So we are converting into the form of, again, arrays, and this array is converted in the form of the authorities, and we are passing the username password authentication token. I mean, this is the place, like this is the method which will return the authentication object. So using the username, password, and whatever the roles that we are having. Okay, so using this, the authentication object is returned, and we are sending to generate the access token using already existing method called generate access token, right? This we understood previously. So now we are done. Okay, and also the helper method in the repo. This we added this helper method in repo, right? Okay, okay, yeah. Now we need to create a security config. Where is that? In the security config, and why we need to add it here? So that the whenever we are doing the API call for this slash refresh token, right? It will come here to this filter chain thing and see that if that refresh token is existing there or not, and then return back the access token. So right now we have this. Let's create for the refresh token. And let me change it to 4. Okay, what we are doing here is simply uh, I just like basically both are same except we haven't added yet the filter. We can add the filter, or it is optional. If you want to add, you can add. We will add. Okay, as it is there itself. And you're like now also it will work if you will see that we are saying that hey, we are authenticating using the JWT token itself, which is basically the refresh token, but we will not have any permission with that, and everything is fine. If we will run this thing, I hope the refresh token thing should return at least the access token. Let me close this thing. Let me do the sign in. If you will see here, we receive the sign in API. Let me do the admin thing. So now we are able to access it, right? Let's count for 1 minute. Let's see that. So it's 12:57, right? So we will just wait for a few seconds. I will pause this thing. Oh, so just I'm just waiting for it to get failure, right? You can please forward this a little bit. It is almost 45 seconds, I believe. It should expire anytime now. Come on. I will pause this thing video. So I believe it should fail now because it is almost more than 1 minute. So yeah, it is failing, right? So now what we can do is while we are doing this sign in, we must have received a refresh token. So using this refresh token, let's see that if we are able to get the new access token or not. So where is this refresh token API? I will put the this thing. We will receive the access token. Wonderful. And now let's do the admin message. So yeah, perfect, right? So this way you don't need to log in and again every other minute, right? So refresh token helps in that way. So refresh token, what it did, though your access token expired, right? You are able to call the refresh token method based on uh, what you received in the cookie. You are able to call the refresh token and get the new access token. So it is a cyclic thing. And till when it will happen, either you log out or till you basically delete, like revoke your refresh token. Okay. So one more thing in this is to add the refresh token filter. And if you want, you can add it. It will basically check that if the user has revoked or not. So let's add this thing itself. It is pretty simple. Okay, first create a JWT refresh token filter. Let's go there, add a JWT config Java JWT refresh token filter. Let's copy everything, paste it there. So let's see what is happening there. So we are saying that whatever the request is coming in, same thing, like take the header, convert, like we will have it equal to, first we should just check that hey, if it is starting with error or not, and then we are going to take the token based on I mean like after beer 7 right now, you guys understand this the same thing here. Let's decode the token based on the RSA key record that we have. Let's get the username from the token. Let's see that if username is empty or not, if the context itself is null or not, authentication ability is itself present or not. So we are adding one extra method in this. What is this? We are just checking in our database that whatever the refresh token that we have here is present there in database or not. And if it is present, is it revoked? So if you will just do the quick reload, connect, see the refresh token. So we are just saying that is it revoked? If it is not revoked, then it is fine, right? So this is the extra thing that we are doing. Okay. So var this, and now we are checking that is token is valid, and plus if uh, token is, I mean refresh token is present or not. So we are adding just this thing extra. Rest everything is same. Okay. So that's why I said like it is pretty simple. Let's add it here itself. So in this we will just have to add this add filter. Let me add here, and it needs refresh token wrapper. Let me add this refresh token wrapper. Private final refresh token wrapper. Refresh token wrapper. I hope you guys are understanding till now, and if you're seeing this video, because if you can guys can pause also the timestamp and all to see that everything is fucking fine for you or not. I mean, like you can guys can divide it into the chunks and then do it, or you can just go to this repo and copy these, paste these steps. Okay, so let's start with this sign out. Okay, so sign out will do what? It will revoke the refresh token so that nobody can access it to get a new access token. So many access, right? So what we should do is for the sign out, the Spring Security provide a internal, Spring Security has internal method which is it called it logout handler. So it is pretty cool. Let me copy this thing. Uh, let's put it here. Change it to 4. It is fine. Let's change this thing to. So what these means is basically the order of creation of bean. So whichever is having the lowest one will have the highest priority. Okay, so it is similar. Hey, whatever the whenever you are pressing the logout API, it will come here. CSRF disable. We need to authenticate the API that every person who is giving this is correct or not. Stateless and add filter. Basically, let me remove this thing. Okay, we can check because anyhow, whenever somebody is logged in, then only he will be. I mean, he will be sending through the access token itself. Like, it is fine. You can use refresh token also to revoke it, but both are fine. So we can use the refresh token one also. It both are fine. So with the logger and you can even remove it if you want to. So this is the thing which is coming here, which is the Spring Security inbuilt functionality, which says that hey, whenever this logout API is called, let's add a logout handler, a service method. So this is, and once it is successful, let's remove the authentication object from security context holder. So let's do whatever we want in this logout handler. Let's create a file called logout handler service. I'm just going to add it here and then create it, being a little bit feeling a little bit macho kind of thing. Okay, so in this service, let's add a file called logout handler service. Okay, and in this logout handler service, you basically are saying that hey, let me let's reload everything. Okay, so it what this error is. Okay, logout handler service. We are saying that, and these are all the inbuilt in inbuilt method. So let me remove this, then you will understand what I mean by that. So logout handlers in the security config, when we added that, hey, our logout handler will be there in this method, right? In this, here we are implementing our logout handler, which is given by the logout handler, which is given by the Spring Security, and it has one method which says logout using the request and response, and for the authentication object. Okay, so let me copy this back again, put this thing here. So once we are having this request, response, and authentication object, let's see the auth header. Yeah, it is the authorization type. We are seeing that if it is not a mirror, it means that somebody is messing around with us. We will just return it without logging out. Uh, we, we are not doing anything for this request. And we are just taking the Spring refresh token, and we are just finding that if this refresh token exists, then simply set the token value to revoke is equal to true. Okay, and why I'm doing this map here? Because suppose because it's many to one relation, right? So that's why we are having it in this way. You can see I have also added one query here, right? Which is if you want to log out based on a specific from the all the refresh token using the email ID, you can use this query here, find all refresh token by the email ID and delete it. But right now what we are doing is we are sending our refresh token here itself, right? To get logged out. So it is one specific one, so that's why it is much more simpler. Did you get it what I'm saying? I'm just saying that right now we are sending the refresh token for the logout, right? So when we are sending this refresh token to the logout, it is coming here. Only one value will be there because this thing is unique. So we are just revoking that value and saving it and making it true. Okay, so once it is done, let's restart the application. And now we will see, I believe, let's do a sign in. Okay, we have this. Let's go to the cookie refresh token. Let's use this refresh token to get new access token. Refresh token, put it there. New access token. We are able to get this access token, right? And if we do the logout with this refresh token, it is coming success. Now, if we will try to get the new access token, it is saying that, hey, it is revoked, right? We're not able to get the new access token here. If you will see in database, uh, so let me reload this thing, connect, refresh token. If you will see, revoked is true. So now our refresh token is revoked and you will not be able to get a new access token. Okay, perfect, right? So now we have reached to the last point where we are adding the user, which is the sign up. Finally, so if you are still here, so you are a legend, right? If you are still sticking to this tutorial this long. So for the sign up, we need some DTO, right? So let's create a DTO. In this DTO, let's create a user registration DTO, and this, let's put it there. Okay, not empty is basically you can't put null or anything. I mean, with simply you can't put a double braces. You need to put at least some length there. Okay, this is called not empty. It is different from the null. And these are coming from the validation that we require, right? Validation object. So the validation dependency that we had. So this is very useful. So this is our registration DTO that we require. Let's create an API called sign up API. Let me copy this. And the auth controller. Let's create the last one called sign up. So let me do this. And so here what we are doing, we are saying that hey, whatever the request body user is sending to is valid or not, and this binding result is basically is being used to for the validation dependency. We check now that like email is there or not, or something is null or not. So this is being used for that. So what I mean is these things. These things are being checked there in this binding result. Okay, auth controller. What else we have? This HTTP servlet response to return back the refresh token when we are signing up, so that we don't like some application in bad design application, you will see that when you sign up, uh, your account is created, but again you have to go back and sign in again. It is a bad experience, right? So here we are not doing that. We are doing the sign up. We are returning the access token as well as the refresh token. And what ideally you should do is you should, after sign up, successful sign up, return back to the, I mean, forward the user to the actual home page. Okay. So this block is basically saying that, hey, whatever the error that you are finding here in this TTO, just make a list of it and return back. Okay, with the bad request. Let's create a method called register user. So let's go there, create a method called register user. I'm just going to copy this whole stuff till exception here and put this thing here. Okay, so what we are doing here is in the registration DTO, first checking that hey, whatever the DTO we are sending, is this user exist? If it exists, then return back that hey, user already exists. And in this user info mapper, basically you should not, convert this DTO whatever you're receiving from the from the API to the entity object. You should use a mapper, do the validation check and whatnot, extra validation check if you want to. So let's create a package called mapper, and in that mapper, let's call this file name as oops, uh, where is that file? Okay, let me open that. Did I close it? Okay, it's fine. Yeah, we need to create a user info mapper. User info mapper, and let me do this and this. Okay, we were at the bottom, right? At the sign up phase. So let me copy this. User info mapper is basically not doing anything. It is just converting our DTO to our entity. So here you can do multiple checks if you want to add something, remove something in the roles, you want to add something extra based on the email ID or whatnot, you can do it here. So, but I will suggest never to convert your DTO into entity. Use some sort of mapper. It is for the protection. It is good for the protection as well. I mean, it is followed in production environment as well. So let me also add mapper here, private final user info mapper, uh, user info mapper. So your mapper is done. Now in the security config, you just need to say that, hey, if somebody is signing up, don't check anything because you will not have either the access token or the username password or anything like that, right? Because you are just creating the account only. Okay, in this, let's go at the bottom. After logout, let's put in order of 5 here. Keep it 5, make it 6. So what we are doing here, we are saying that hey, if somebody is doing the sign up, don't check anything, just permit all the request, and it will be done for all the API requests coming in. So let's restart the application, and finally you will be able to create the new user called sign up. So right now, let's create this user. We will see you are creating the role of manager, right? So let me copy this, and let's see if you can access it. You should not. Forbidden. Should be able to access this manager, right? So you are able to manager, and your name is manager one, not manager, right? So, and you are doing the sign up in the cookies. You will see you have a refresh token. Using the refresh token, you can get the access token, right? So using the refresh token, you can get the new access token. I will copy this, and again I will try to do first manager. I should not. Let's see the manager. Okay, I am able to receive welcome message. Okay, let me change it to bearer scope read, and let's see in the database finally if everything is correct. Here you will have 4 user instead of 3. The 4 user with the role manager. So finally, I believe you should understand now what access token, refresh token, HTTP only cookie, JPA, and whatnot filters is. So if you like this, please like, share, and subscribe. It took me more than 15 days to, I mean, put this in this format so that it is easy to understand. And yeah, please put it into the comment what next tutorial that you want to have. So thank you.